The Grand Assembly hung like a jeweled cathedral above the orange dwarf star, its translucent walls rippling with living light. The air itself shimmered, colors shifting with emotion, green for calm, red for outrage, amber for warning. Today, it glowed somewhere between gold and blood. Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Coalition adjusted the cuffs of his dark uniform and smiled with practiced civility. His posture was perfect, his tone neutral. Every diplomat in the chamber recognized that look. The calm before humanity decided it had heard enough. Across the obsidian table, Ambassador Tavel of the Kari Dominion clicked her mandibles, her iridescent carapace refracting the room's lights like shards of glass. "Humans," she began in the universal tongue, each syllable thick with disdain, "continue to dramatize their reproductive tragedies. A few lost females, and you summon the stars themselves to weep for you." The sound that followed wasn't laughter so much as the hissing amusement of predators pretending to be polite. Elias didn't flinch. His sea-gray eyes stayed steady, unblinking as if studying the behavior of something small and venomous. When the sound subsided, he pressed a fingertip to the console before him. The air shimmered. A holographic projection expanded across the table. Charred forests, shattered domes, scorched ground. Colony once known as Alicia Prime, now a wasteland. 73 civilians, he said softly. Mostly women, medics, teachers, volunteers. The laughter died like air sucked from a flame. Elias reached for a porcelain cup resting beside him. He poured a slow stream of dark liquid, an anachronistic ritual amid alien metal and neon light. "Coffee," he said, glancing toward Tavel. "A human habit. Would you like some?" Tavel's mandibles twitched. "You bring stimulants to a hearing on war crimes." "Caffeine's never started a war," Elias replied, tone gentle. "Can't say the same for arrogance." A murmur cut through the chamber. The crystalline envoy known as Calith 9 emitted a faint chime, their version of laughter. Others bristled, the room's colors bleeding toward red. From the elevated dais, the council chair, a silver-skinned telepath whose eyes reflected entire galaxies, finally spoke. His voice didn't echo. It arrived directly in every mind. "Your outrage is noted, human. Perhaps your females should remain hidden if they are so delicate." The temperature seemed to fall. Even the wall lights paused their motion, frozen in the hush that followed. Elias inhaled slowly through his nose. "Delicate," he repeated. "That word has buried more empires than you've bothered to count." A dozen species shifted in their seats. Tavel's mandibles clicked faster. "Is that a threat?" "No," Elias said evenly. "A lesson." He tapped the console again. Data streams unfolded. Timestamps, orbital telemetry, intercepted transmissions. "The attacks on our colonies weren't random," he continued. "They were calculated, a test. Someone wanted to know how far Terran politeness stretches before it fractures." The telepath's eyes flared pale white. "And your conclusion?" Elias smiled, calm as ever. "Simple. Stop attacking our women, or we stop pretending to be civilized." The silence that followed wasn't absence. It was electricity, humming through the chamber's core. Calith 9 tilted its crystalline head. "Define pretending." Elias's gaze softened, almost pitying. "Pretending is what humans do before we stand up." A ripple of disquiet spread across the table. The aquatic envoy gurgled disdainfully. "Empty theatrics. Your kind signed the accord precisely because you cannot fight prolonged wars." Elias's grin widened slightly. "You think we're bad at war because we don't enjoy it. That's adorable." The chair's silver cloak brushed the floor as he rose. "Enough. The council finds no grounds for retaliation. The Terran petition is denied. This hearing is concluded." Elias stood as well, smoothing his coat with slow precision. "Of course," he said mildly. "You're the referees, after all." He lifted the coffee cup, inhaled the faint, bitter aroma. "We'll handle the misunderstanding in our own time." As he turned to leave, Calith 9's voice chimed softly behind him. "You fascinate us, Captain Ward. Why such calm when your blood must boil?" He paused at the threshold, the dwarf star's light cutting across his face. "Because where I'm from," he said, "losing your temper means you already lost." He stepped out. The corridor beyond was silent except for the hum of power conduits beneath glass floors. Through the panoramic windows, the assembly drifted in orbit, a cathedral of arrogance suspended above a quiet sun. Elias stopped beside a service droid and handed it the empty cup. "Don't wash that," he said. "Keep it as evidence Earth tried being civilized." The droid blinked once, confused, then stored the cup in its chest compartment. A faint chime buzzed at Elias's wrist. He glanced down. Crypted message, one line. Operation Mother's Mercy, authorized. He exhaled slowly, the motion subtle, controlled. His reflection in the glass stared back, an image of composure masking the gravity beneath. The uniform fit perfectly, every line sharp, every gesture deliberate. But his eyes carried the weight of restraint forged in centuries of war humanity had chosen to forget. The corridor lights dimmed as shuttles detached from the assembly's docking bay. Outside, the stars seemed close enough to touch, distant, indifferent, watching. The door ahead opened to the embarkation platform. The Artemis waited beyond the glass, sleek and silent, a silver blade resting in shadow. His pilot, Lieutenant Rana Holt, saluted crisply as he approached. "Captain, council session concluded?" "Concluded," Elias said. "Not resolved." She hesitated. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" He nodded. "Do they even realize what they've done?" Elias looked past her toward the void, where Vega's outer colonies glimmered faintly like candles in wind. "No," he said, "but they will." As he stepped aboard, the docking clamps released with a soft hiss. The shuttle's engines flared blue, sliding them away from the assembly's orbit. Through the viewport, the grand hall shrank, a glittering speck against the darkness, its colors still shifting with emotion it didn't understand. Inside the cabin, the lights dimmed to travel mode. Elias loosened his collar, staring into the black sea ahead. "Lieutenant," he said quietly. "Sir, remind the crew. No broadcasts, no retaliation orders, no movement without my command." "Yes, sir." He leaned back in his seat, the hum of the engines steady beneath his thoughts. "They'll mock this," he murmured. "They always do, till the silence starts answering back." The stars outside stretched into long ribbons as the shuttle slipped into hyperslip. In that endless blur, the reflection of a calm man held the faintest shadow of a storm. He whispered to the void, to no one and everyone, politeness revoked. The USS Artemis drifted through open space like a blade cooling after the forge. Inside, the bridge was quiet except for the low pulse of systems and the soft chatter of crew routines. Captain Elias Ward stood at the central viewport, arms loosely folded behind his back, watching the orange dwarf star fade into the black. The reflection that looked back at him was calm, but beneath it lay an exhaustion no sleep could erase. The galaxy thought humanity incapable of restraint. It had never seen what that restraint cost. Lieutenant Rana Holt broke the silence. "Council feed's gone public, sir. Their statement labels the hearing as unproductive." Elias gave a small, humorless smile. Unproductive is their way of saying they didn't listen. Around them, the bridge crew carried on, voices steady, movements precise, each officer aware that something unseen was shifting beneath the calm surface. Then the quiet fractured. "Captain," called Lieutenant Ramos from communications. "Emergency burst, civilian channel unencrypted. Origin, Epsilon convoy, outer route near the Vega colonies." Elias turned slowly. "Play it." Static filled the room, followed by distorted shouting. A woman's voice screamed coordinates before the feed broke into chaos. Explosions, alarms, and the unmistakable sound of terrified children. The image flickered once before dying into black. The bridge froze. Elias's hand rested against the railing. "Timestamp?" 22 minutes ago." He exhaled through his nose. "Play it again." Ramos hesitated. "Sir, play it." The screams returned. No one moved this time. When it ended, the silence was unbearable. "Casualties?" Elias asked quietly. "Unknown, sir." Convoy was unarmed, medical transport only. "Mostly female personnel, family dependents." Holt's voice cracked despite her training. "They went after medics." Elias's gaze didn't waver. "Because they thought we wouldn't respond." He turned toward the main display. "Kashasa," he said, addressing the ship's AI. "Secure all external channels except Broadcast Prime." "Route to my station." The AI's voice emerged, a woman's tone, soft and measured. "Confirmed." "You intend to transmit publicly, Captain?" "Yes," Ramos blinked. "Sir, you're going on record?" "The Council will..." The council already had its chance. Elias's tone remained steady, almost gentle. Now it's the galaxy's turn to listen. He walked to the forward platform. The lights dimmed automatically, isolating him in a cone of white. Every camera aboard synchronized on his position. Across billions of receivers, human, alien, and artificial, the feed flickered alive. The image that appeared was simple. A human officer standing before the vast window of space, posture composed, uniform dark against the starlight. Behind him, the Earth insignia glimmered faintly on the hull. "Citizens of the Accord," he began, voice low and clear. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Terran Coalition." He paused, not for drama, but for weight. Earlier today, 73 civilians were confirmed dead on Alicia Prime. 22 minutes ago, another convoy was attacked. Unarmed medics, families, children. "We've requested council intervention. We were dismissed." His eyes lifted to meet the lens directly. "This message isn't for them. It's for everyone who still believes civility is a sign of weakness." The broadcast continued uninterrupted, the kind of silence that demanded attention. "Humanity has endured much," he said. "We've rebuilt cities from ashes, buried our dead in glass, and still reached out our hands in peace. But if those hands are struck again, if one more of our women, one more child is harmed, then I give you this promise." He leaned slightly forward. "We stop pretending to be civilized." Somewhere in the endless dark, millions of translators paused mid-phrase, struggling to interpret the tone. The precision of the word pretending, Elias continued, voice even, each syllable deliberate. "We prefer peace. We built civilizations on it. But make no mistake, we're very good at other things." The bridge crew remained motionless. Even the hum of the engines seemed subdued. Then he did something no military broadcast officer had ever done. He smiled. Not the smile of diplomacy, but of quiet, unshakable certainty. "You've mistaken kindness for fear," he said. "Don't make that mistake again." The transmission ended on his face. Calm, unsmiling now, eyes steady as the feed cut to black. The bridge lights brightened automatically. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Ramos broke the silence. "That just went system-wide, sir. Every Accord relay picked it up." "Good," Elias said. "At least they'll remember our tone, if not our words." Holt shook her head slowly. "You just threatened half the galaxy." "Only the half that stopped listening," he replied. Kashasa's voice returned. "Incoming data surge, tactical and diplomatic channels. Reactions are divided. Some species express outrage, others confusion. A few, admiration." Elias gave a small nod. "Monitor them. We'll know soon who understood and who didn't." He turned toward the viewport again. Outside, the stars shimmered like cold fire. Ramos cleared his throat. "Sir, you realize the Council will issue a sanction order for unauthorized transmission." Elias glanced over his shoulder, faint amusement in his eyes. "They can add it to the list." A message indicator blinked on the lower console. Kashasa's tone shifted. "Captain, encrypted response received from Lunar Command. Priority level Black Veil." He tapped his wrist display. "Open." The message unfolded as a single phrase. "Proceed to Epsilon coordinates. Confirm distress source. Authorization, Mother's Mercy active." The bridge temperature seemed to drop. Holt stared at him. "That's a combat directive, sir." "Yes." He straightened his cuffs, every motion deliberate. "Set course." "Sir, we'll be outnumbered." That's usually the best way to make a point. Holt hesitated. "Point, sir?" Elias's voice softened, almost kind. "Education. Sometimes the galaxy learns only when it's terrified." Engines hummed higher as the Artemis turned toward the coordinates. The hull lights shifted from diplomatic blue to combat white. A quiet transformation felt more than seen. Ramos whispered under his breath. "We're really doing this," Elias heard him. "Lieutenant, history doesn't record the words of the reasonable. It remembers the moment someone finally spoke truth without permission." The comm crackled again. Open chatter from foreign systems. Snippets of disbelief poured in. Alien commentators mocking humanity's drama, others calling it a bluff, a few warning that the Terrans had changed. Kashasa processed the noise. Public sentiment fragmented. Estimated 62% believe you were exaggerating. Elias's gaze hardened. Then 62% are about to receive clarity. He returned to the command chair, fingers brushing against the armrest, where the ship's motto was engraved in polished steel, "Speak softly." He looked at it a moment, then added softly, "Carry the rest." As the Artemis accelerated into slipstream, space bent around them like liquid glass. The hull vibrated faintly, engine harmonics merging into a low, heartbeat rhythm. In his cabin hours later, Elias sat alone, the glow of data screens painting his face in blue and white. Reports streamed in, intercepted alien chatter, council condemnations and human colonies cheering the broadcast. He scrolled through the noise until a still frame appeared, Alicia prime before the fire. A group of women laughing beside a medical transport, sunlight glinting off their visors. He studied it in silence. Kashasa's voice returned, subdued. "Do you regret the transmission, Captain?" He shook his head. "Regret belongs to people who expect forgiveness. I expect results. Then what are your expectations now?" He leaned back, eyes closing briefly. "That by tomorrow the galaxy stops confusing patience with weakness." He stood, poured himself a cup of cold coffee, and stared out the viewport at the streaking light. "Tell the crew to rest," he said quietly. "Tomorrow we'll test our manners." As the ship hurtled toward the Epsilon Rift, the stars blurred into ribbons, and for the first time in a century, the galaxy wasn't laughing at humanity. It was listening. The USS Artemis emerged from hyperslip like a silent blade slicing through black water. Ahead, the nebular rift stretched vast and luminous, an ocean of blue fire and violet clouds swirling around a dark core. The rift wasn't on any standard route. Even automated vessels avoided it. Inside, sensors faltered, light bent, and navigation turned into prayer. Captain Elias Ward stood at the helm, his reflection ghosting across the forward glass. The bridge lights were dimmed to combat amber, casting the crew in long shadows. "Distance to the Epsilon convoy's last signal?" he asked. Lieutenant Ramos, voice clipped and low, replied, "0.5 astronomical units. We're entering the outer turbulence now." The ship trembled as it passed through the rift's magnetic sheath. Electric halos licked the hull, streaking across the viewports like blue lightning veins. Lieutenant Holt steadied her console, shields holding at 97%. Reading multiple distortion pockets, unknown signatures, closing formation. Elias's gaze didn't shift from the window. "How many?" "3 fleets, sir. Different configurations, Dominion, Othish, and Hegari. Combined count 32 warships," Ramos swore under his breath. "They're waiting for us." "They're confident," Elias said quietly. "Confidence is easy when your enemy's polite." The tactical display bloomed in holographic red, showing arcs of approaching firepower. The Artemis looked tiny in comparison, a single dot adrift in a storm of predators. "Orders, Captain," Holt asked. Elias clasped his hands behind his back. "Maintain course." "Cut active shields." Holt turned, disbelief flashing in her eyes. "Sir, without shields, let them believe they're drawing blood," he interrupted softly. "Lesson 1. Never interrupt arrogance while it's teaching." The bridge went silent. Around them, the enemy ships tightened formation. Plasma lances armed, engines flared. Ramos glanced back at him. "We're broadcasting distress on loop, sir." "They'll think we're limping." "Good," Elias said. "Keep the performance honest." Kashasa, the ship's AI, spoke in her calm, human-like voice. "Incoming hail, Captain. Audio and visual. Origin, Dominion flagship Vathrix. Put it through." The air shimmered, and the towering image of Admiral Thress materialized, a reptilian giant armored in polished obsidian scales, eyes like molten gold. His smirk showed rows of teeth built for war. "Human vessel," he growled. "You've trespassed into restricted space. Cut your engines and surrender. The Dominion promises conditional mercy." Elias tilted his head slightly. "Appreciate the offer, Admiral. But we brought our own mercy." Thress's expression hardened. "You believe this is negotiation?" "No," Elias said. "It's a countdown." The alien's voice rose. "You bluff." "You always bluff." "Maybe," Elias replied, eyes narrowing. "But that's the fun part." The hologram vanished, and immediately the enemy fleet fired. Dozens of plasma beams tore through the void, converging on the Artemis. The first wave struck, brilliant light engulfing the hull. The bridge flared white, then silence. When the glare faded, the ship still floated untouched. The energy bolts had folded around it, bending harmlessly away like light through water. Holt blinked at her console. Impact deflection, total. That wasn't shielding. Elias's voice was quiet. No, that was preparation. He pressed a single key on the armrest. The surrounding nebula rippled as if inhaling. From the mists, shadows began to move. Massive shapes emerging one after another, engines burning like stars. Ramos's eyes widened. Multiple contacts, friendly IFFs. They were hidden in the rift. Mining freighters, civilian carriers, old defense hulls, all refitted, Holt murmured. Sir, that's half the reserve fleet. The air trembled as the Terran vessels formed up in a wide crescent behind the Artemis. Each ship bore a name stenciled across its hull. Aurora, Alicia, Haven's Reach, Sister Mercy. Every name carried the weight of a fallen colony. Fleet online, said Kashasa. Weapons synchronized. Elias nodded once. Then let's educate them. The Terran fleet opened fire. No fanfare, no warning. Missiles streaked like white lightning, weaving through enemy formations with machine precision. The nebula flared bright as enemy vessels exploded, each detonation folding into violet flame. The enemy's response came swift. The Dominion ships regrouped, their plasma cannons cutting arcs through the dark. Brace for counter-volley, Holt called. The Artemis rocked under impact, inertial dampeners whining. The lights flickered. Ramos shouted, "Power fluctuations, 3% drop, nothing serious." Elias remained composed, eyes fixed on the tactical grid. "Reroute to forward conduits. They're trying to burn through our focus. Don't let them." Outside, chaos unfolded in measured rhythm. Terran vessels fought like surgeons. No wasted fire, no panic. Every strike was clean, mathematical, deliberate. A secondary display flickered alive. Enemy communication channels open for broadcast. Voices screamed, orders broke, panic spread. The Dominion ships began to lose cohesion. Admiral Thress's flagship retreating, Kashasa reported. But something's wrong. Their systems are fluctuating. Elias allowed himself the faintest smile. They're not losing power, Lieutenant. We're taking it. On the display, red icons began dimming as Terran algorithms hijacked enemy energy grids, rerouting power into human vessels through the rift's magnetic field. The Artemis's output surged. Holt stared in disbelief. Sir, that's their own wormhole technology. How? You shouldn't upload your military manuals to a public archive, Elias said dryly. We read fast. The bridge crew laughed once, quick and nervous. Then the laughter died as the magnitude of what they were seeing sank in. Within minutes, half the Dominion fleet was burning. The rest scrambled for retreat vectors, but hyperslip drives wouldn't engage. The rift itself had become a net, its boundaries pulsing with hidden Terran beacons. Kashasa's tone sharpened. They are trapped, Captain. Every exit sealed. Elias stood at the viewport watching the firestorm bloom, his voice lowered to a near whisper. They trapped our people on Alicia Prime. Now they understand symmetry. Thress reappeared on comms, static distorting his image. You'll drown us all, human. You'll destroy this entire sector. Elias raised his mug, steam curling upward from freshly poured coffee. You shouldn't have started a fire in a library, he said, taking a slow sip. Everything burns faster when it's full of knowledge. Thress snarled something incomprehensible before the signal died. Elias looked to Holt. Open comms. Full spectrum, she hesitated. To who? To everyone. The next sound that filled the void wasn't weapons fire. It was music. A soft human lullaby. Female voices in harmony, old as Earth itself. The melody drifted across open frequencies, haunting and calm, echoing through the wreckage. On alien ships, soldiers froze mid-command. Some wept. Others fired blindly into the dark, unable to bear the sound. The battle's fury began to fade, replaced by the eerie quiet of surrender. Terran drones swept through the wreckage, collecting survivors. Ramos whispered, "They're signaling retreat. Some are ejecting cores, total surrender." "Good," Elias said softly. "Lesson complete." The hymn continued, its gentle tones merging with the hum of engines. The nebula, once a battlefield, glowed now like a wounded sunset. "Cease fire," Elias ordered. "Recover the living. Leave the rest." Holt's eyes met his. "What should I mark the engagement under, sir?" He looked out at the drifting ships, the violet haze flickering across the debris. Call it education. The bridge was silent again. The crew moved efficiently. No celebration, no gloating, only precision. Kashasa spoke once more. Captain, incoming encrypted burst. Origin unknown. Display. The message appeared as 3 words. Test received, confirmed. Elias studied it, unreadable. Not from command? No traceable origin, Kashasa replied. He closed his fist around the mug, jaw tightening. Then the test wasn't just theirs. He turned to Holt. Status of the field? Stabilizing. No hostiles left standing. Elias nodded slowly. Then hold position. We'll let the galaxy absorb the lesson before we speak again. Outside, the remnants of fleets drifted in silence. The rift, once brilliant and violent, now shimmered with faint ghostly light, as though it too had learned something it would never forget. The nebula still burned when the guns fell silent. Violet clouds rolled through the void like wounded storms, swallowing the wreckage of 3 fleets. Where the Artemis floated, light shimmered across her hull in slow ripples, blue, silver, then white again, as though the ship itself breathed. Captain Elias Ward stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped loosely behind him. His reflection ghosted faintly in the viewport. Calm eyes, weary posture, composure forged from exhaustion and purpose. Report, he said quietly. Lieutenant Ramos checked the sensors. All hostile signals neutralized. 53 escape pods recovered so far. Survivors are minimal, but alive. Alive is enough, Elias murmured. Lieutenant Holt added, our fleet took no losses. Minor damage to Aurora and Haven's Reach, both operational. Elias nodded, still staring at the drifting field of light. Begin rescue operations. Prioritize escape pods, no discrimination. Dominion Othish Heggery. If they breathe, we pull them in. Ramos turned in disbelief. Sir, after what they did, they attacked medics, Lieutenant. We don't. His voice carried no heat, only iron. We'll remind them what civilization actually looks like. The order went out. Across the fleet, drones detached from their hulls, gliding silently into the debris field. Mechanical arms extended, scanning for life. Human ships moved like surgeons through the ruin. Methodical, efficient, merciless only in precision. A faint hum filled the air, the echo of the hymn still looping across open frequencies. The same lullaby that had played during the battle now drifted among the wrecks, a sound haunting in its serenity. Elias lowered his head slightly, listening. Leave it running, he said. Let the survivors hear what mercy sounds like. Kashasa's voice emerged from the console, calm and measured. Incoming communication, Captain. Multiple channels. Public feeds, council networks, independent broadcasts. Patch them. The screen divided into fragments, news anchors, alien military analysts, council spokespeople, all arguing in overlapping voices. Humans have annihilated 3 allied fleets. Unprecedented precision, no collateral damage. Psychological warfare through music, barbaric in elegance. What does education mean in Terran context? Elias muted the noise with one command. They'll name it whatever helps them sleep. Holt looked up from her console. The entire battle was broadcast. Billions saw it. Good, he said. They'll remember what restraint looks like when it finally ends. He moved toward the viewport. The reflection of the nebula burned across his face, painting him in alternating gold and purple light. Kashasa, pull the data on remaining escape pods. Confirmed, the AI replied. Approximately 217 still drifting. Power reserves fading. Send drones, Elias said. Recover them all, Ramos hesitated. Even Thres? If he's breathing, yes. The lieutenant frowned. Why? He'd never spare us. Elias turned his gaze on him, expression unreadable. Because killing the defeated makes us small. We're not small. The comms officer swallowed his reply and obeyed. Minutes later, the bridge lights dimmed as recovery began. Video feeds filled the displays, scenes of alien survivors being pulled aboard, their faces pale with disbelief. Some trembled at the sight of humans offering them water. Others simply stared. They expected slaughter, Holt whispered. They expected themselves, Elias said. The AI's tone softened. Captain, External sensors detect an active distress transmission. Source, Dominion flagship Vathrix. Minimal power, life signs. 1. Open channel, Elias said. Static hissed. Then the image of Admiral Thress appeared. Bloodied, armor cracked, the once mighty reptilian form reduced to something frail. "You call this mercy?" he rasped. Elias studied him for a moment before replying. "No, this is education." Thress's mouth twisted. "You're monsters." Elias didn't flinch. "No, just tired of pretending we're not." The connection died. For a long time, only the hum of engines filled the bridge. Then Kashasa spoke again. "New transmissions incoming, Council priority level." "Let them wait," Elias said quietly. "They'll speak when they decide what fear sounds like." He turned from the viewport. "Ramos, signal the fleet. Medical triage on Deck 4, temporary holding cells adjacent. Everyone treated, no exceptions." "Yes, sir. And the dead?" Holt asked. "Catalog them. Mark their ships. Identify names where possible. Send the data to the Dominion archives. Let their historians remember who they lost and why." The order hung heavy in the air, a strange mix of vengeance and compassion. Hours passed before the Council dared to contact them again. When the holographic seal appeared, Elias didn't move to the chair. He stayed standing, hands behind his back. The Council chamber projected around him, half its seats empty, its atmosphere cracked with unease. 1,000 worlds were watching. Calith 9 appeared at the forefront, crystalline body fractured but glowing faintly. "Captain Ward," it said, voice like wind through glass. "The Council demands an explanation." Elias regarded the projection calmly. "You wanted proof of discipline. You've received it." The telepathic frequencies flickered with agitation. Another delegate, scaled and trembling, spat. "You've destabilized entire sectors. Trade routes are gone, fleets destroyed. This is an atrocity." "An atrocity?" Elias repeated softly. "You call retaliation for murdered civilians an atrocity?" Calith 9's facets pulsed. "You could have wiped them out completely. Yet you stopped. Why?" Elias's voice dropped almost a whisper. "Because extinction teaches nothing. Fear without understanding only breeds hate. We chose education," the chamber quieted. Even the telepath's static whispers dimmed. Another delegate leaned forward. "Then what is your lesson, Captain?" "That peace exists because we prefer it," Elias said. "Not because we lack alternatives." The Council's lights dimmed slightly, the universal sign of discomfort. Calith 9 tilted its head. "Your restraint is unsettling." "Good," Elias replied. "It means you're thinking." The projection flickered out, the Council retreating into silence. Elias turned back to the bridge crew. "Send the conversation to all Coalition channels." "No edits," Ramos nodded. "Yes, sir. It'll reach them within the hour." The captain leaned against the railing, eyes distant. "And tell the rescue teams to finish retrieval. Once the last survivor is aboard, we move." "Destination, sir?" Holt asked. "Home, let the wreckage drift. It'll speak louder than anything I could say." The bridge fell silent again. Outside, the nebula's light began to fade, its violet clouds dissolving into shadow. Ships scattered through the void like constellations rearranging themselves. As the Artemis aligned for slipspace, Kashasa spoke one last time. "Captain, incoming message, encoded, priority black. Origin uncertain. Read it, Phase 2 authorized." Elias's jaw tightened. "Already?" "Yes," said the AI. "Orders follow. Maintain position until verification." He exhaled slowly. "Tell them verification isn't needed." "We're not ghosts. We don't linger." Kashasa paused. "Understood." He looked out at the fading light of the rift one last time. "Let the galaxy bury its dead. We'll wait until they start asking why." The engines roared softly, gathering strength. "Course for Sol," he said. The ship turned, slow and graceful, leaving the violet fire behind. The hymn faded into silence. In its place came only the hum of propulsion, a low, steady sound, almost like breathing. Holt glanced back one last time at the drifting wrecks. "Sir, do you think they'll understand what we were trying to say?" Elias's answer came after a pause. "Understanding isn't the goal, Lieutenant. Memory is." The stars ahead stretched into ribbons of white. Behind them, the remains of arrogance burned dimly against the dark. The galaxy had been warned. The council chamber no longer shimmered. Where once light rippled across its walls in diplomatic colors, now only gray luminescence remained, a sterile, silent pallor that reflected the mood of a frightened galaxy. The once glorious ceiling, etched with constellations of every known civilization, flickered in patches where emergency projectors had failed. Across the hall, alien delegates sat in uneven clusters, whispering, avoiding one another's gaze. The war fleets they had trusted for centuries lay scattered ash in the rift. The Terrans had left, but the silence they'd created still pressed against every wall. At the center stood Calith 9, crystalline and fractured, its luminous facets dimmed by radiation cracks. Yet when it spoke, its voice carried the steady poise of a being that had decided truth was worth its fractures. "The assembly is open," it announced. "We will address the matter of reparations and stability." No one moved. Then the scaled ambassador from the Vath Dominion rose, tattered uniform, one arm in a sling, fury sharp as glass. "Stability? You speak of order while our fleets drift in ruin. They slaughtered our soldiers under a flag of diplomacy." Calith 9's surface shimmered faintly. "They slaughtered no one who did not raise a weapon. Their actions were precise, the ambassador hissed. "They turned the nebula into a graveyard." From the side benches, a soft chime echoed. And yet they stopped. All turned to the holographic figure flickering at the chamber's edge, Captain Elias Ward, standing in full Terran uniform. The broadcast feed was clean, his posture calm, voice steady as he inclined his head. "Good afternoon, Council," the Dominion envoy recoiled. "You dare address this chamber after what you've done?" Elias's smile was polite, almost kind. "If I didn't, you might assume we'd stopped paying attention." The room buzzed with tension. Some shouted over translation lag. Others watched in silence, unable to decide whether they were seeing a diplomat or a ghost. Calith 9's light brightened faintly. "Captain Ward, the Council demands accountability. The galaxy trembles on the brink of collapse. Do you comprehend what your fleet's demonstration has caused?" "I do," Elias replied. "Awareness, consequence, and a chance for clarity that centuries of debate never achieved. You've destabilized half the Accord," an aquatic delegate rasped. "Trade routes severed, colonies rioting. Because you mistook stability for justice," Elias interrupted, tone unflinching. "You let entire populations vanish behind bureaucracy. You let our colonies burn and called it procedure. We corrected the vocabulary." Calith 9 leaned forward. "And what of mercy? Was that part of your vocabulary?" "It still is," he said. "Every survivor we recovered is alive, treated, and returned. No planet burned. No civilians harmed. You call it fear. We call it restraint." The Council murmured uneasily. Across the chamber, translators struggled to catch up, their mechanical voices layering over one another like static. "Restraint?" A mechanical envoy from the Siler Axis rasped. "You broadcasted a lullaby while entire fleets perished." Elias nodded once. "A song, yes. From Earth's earliest history. Mothers sang it to quiet frightened children. I thought it appropriate. That silenced them." Calith 9 studied him for a long moment. "You understand the Council cannot ignore this. The Accord forbids unilateral military action." Elias's gaze was calm steel. "The Accord also forbids the targeting of civilians. Yet you ignored those violations for years. You invoked treaties only when the wrong species bled." A low ripple of agreement spread through the chamber, quiet at first, then growing. Several neutral delegates glanced at one another, suddenly unwilling to defend the old hierarchy. Calith 9's tone softened. "Then what is it you seek, Captain? Vengeance? Control? Tribute?" Elias's expression didn't change. "None of those. We seek a new understanding, a redefinition of civilization. I propose an addition to the Accord, the Elysia Protocols." The title struck like a note of thunder, holographic text projected behind him. Short, clear, impossible to misinterpret. All civilian populations, regardless of species, gender, or designation, are inviolable. Any attack on non-combatants constitutes a declaration of war against all signatories. The Terran Coalition assumes custodial enforcement authority until the galaxy learns to police itself. Outrage burst from the assembly. "You would make yourselves arbiters. You seek dominion under a mask of virtue. Humans cannot dictate morality. Elias raised a hand and the chamber fell quiet. You mistake this for a negotiation. It isn't. It's a choice. You can sign the protocols, or watch them enforced without your signatures. The silence that followed was thick and cold. Calith 9's facets dimmed, refracting the light like fractured ice. And if we refuse? Elias's eyes hardened, the smile fading. Then Earth stops pretending diplomacy still works. The words dropped into the chamber like a weight. Even the recording systems faltered before recovering. The air seemed to hum. After several long seconds, Calith 9 spoke again, voice low. I see now why they fear you. Elias's tone gentled. Fear fades. Memory lasts. The crystalline being straightened, light rippling across its damaged body. You'll have your protocols, Captain. But understand this. When you frighten the galaxy into peace, you inherit its nightmares. Elias inclined his head slightly. We already live with ours. The projection faded. The council chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over one another, some furious, some relieved, others whispering about what custodial enforcement truly meant. Calith 9 let them rage for a while before striking the podium with a resonant chime. Order, it commanded. This council will convene for vote. The tally began. One by one, worlds responded. First, those still reeling from the rift, reluctant affirmations out of fear. Then, one unexpected voice, the small, reclusive Aven Republic, whose envoy trembled but spoke clearly. We sign not from fear, but because we saw what they did not. Human mercy amid destruction. That broke the tide. More signatures followed until the final count scrolled across the display. Unanimous Calith 9 turned toward the holographic projection that remained faintly shimmering, a residual image of Elias, still standing as though he'd known the outcome before it began. The Council ratifies the Alicia Protocols, it declared. Effective immediately. Elias inclined his head. Wise decision. The crystalline ambassador's glow brightened slightly, almost a bow. Do you expect gratitude, Captain? He smiled faintly. No, just adherence. Then the projection vanished, leaving only the echo of his last words drifting through the fractured chamber. Hours later, in orbit above the Council's world, Elias stood on the Artemis's observation deck. Below him, the capital city glittered like frost. The hum of engines and the faint rhythmic pulse of power conduits filled the silence. Lieutenant Holt approached quietly. Council just confirmed broadcast of the new accords. Every channel's replaying your address. Elias didn't turn. They'll spend years pretending it was diplomacy that saved them. Wasn't it? She asked. He glanced at her, the faintest trace of humor in his eyes. Diplomacy backed by inevitability. Holt hesitated. What happens now? Now, he said, we wait. The moment after, fear is the most dangerous. That's when pride starts whispering again. Ramos entered, tablet in hand. Transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Kuran sends congratulations. And a reminder. Phase 2 remains classified. Elias took the device, reading the brief note. His jaw tightened. Classified, but active. Yes, sir. He looked back at the planet below. Tell Kuran the message was delivered. The galaxy heard us. Let them rebuild. Holt studied him for a moment. You don't look satisfied, sir. He gave a thin smile. Satisfaction is for people who think wars end when the shooting stops. Ramos frowned. And us? Elias turned from the window, his voice steady. We're the reminder that peace has teeth. The Artemis's engines shifted pitch as it turned toward the outer colonies. Behind them, the Council's world glowed beneath the quiet of new law. In its marble halls, Calith 9 stood alone at the central podium, recording a new entry for the archives. Humans do not conquer. They correct. The Artemis moved through the dark with engines dimmed to a whisper, her hull reflecting faint traces of starlight. The war was over, though no one dared use the word. Across the galaxy, signals of surrender and reconstruction flickered like dying embers. Calm, fragile, uncertain. Captain Elias Ward stood on the observation deck, hands resting against the railing as the stars drifted slowly past. The ship's lights had been lowered to half strength. Even the hum of the systems seemed subdued, as if the vessel itself understood that silence now mattered more than power. Below, Earth's blue shimmer floated like a memory suspended in the void. Lieutenant Holt's reflection appeared beside him, her voice quiet. Reports from the outer colonies just came in. The Alicia protocols are being enforced without resistance. The Council's broadcasts call it a universal realignment. Elias gave a faint nod. They'll rename it again in a few years. History always edits fear into diplomacy. She studied him for a moment. You don't look relieved, sir. Relief isn't part of the job, he said softly. Responsibility is. For a moment, neither spoke. The glass before them reflected two faces, one young and uncertain, one older and unreadable, both carrying the echo of what they'd seen. Kashasa's voice filled the silence, smooth as wind through wires. Incoming transmission, Captain. Encrypted. Lunar Command priority black. Patch it through to my quarters, Elias said. He turned, boots echoing faintly against the deck as he walked the length of the corridor. The halls of the Artemis were quiet now. No laughter, no chatter, only the measured rhythm of a ship trying to remember what peace felt like. Inside his quarters, the lights rose slowly as the communication console activated. A familiar voice came through, aged, steady, and carrying the gravity of someone who'd outlived too many wars. Elias, said Admiral Kuran. Admiral, Elias replied, taking a seat. You've heard the news. The Council signed faster than expected, Kuran said. You turned the galaxy on its axis without firing another shot. Elias's tone remained neutral. They didn't sign out of respect. They signed out of fear. Kuran's sigh came through the static. Sometimes fear is the only teacher left. You've given them memory, and memory is what keeps weapons cold. Elias leaned back, at least until they forget. They will, Kuran said quietly. It's in their nature and ours. Which is why Phase 2 proceeds. Elias's eyes darkened. Containment. Correct. Quiet enforcement. No public strikes, no battles. We let the idea of us do the work. And if they test us again? Elias asked. Then we remind them who wrote the syllabus. The line went silent for a moment before Kuran's tone softened. You've carried this well, son, too well. Don't let it consume you. Elias's gaze drifted toward the viewport. It's already done its work. Kuran hesitated. Then rest while you can. The weight doesn't get lighter, only familiar. The call ended. The console dimmed, leaving him alone in the soft hum of his quarters. He poured himself a cup of coffee, his oldest ritual. The scent filled the air, grounding him in something human, something ordinary. He stared into the dark liquid, then set it down untouched. Kashasa's voice returned, gentle. Captain, message queued for you. Civilian network. Earth origin. From who? Identification, your daughter. Elias froze, the noise of the ship fading into nothing. Put it through. The screen flickered, then stabilized. A small face appeared. Brown hair, wide eyes, a smile missing one tooth. Daddy, the little girl said, her voice bright through static. Mom says I can stay up because the stars are loud tonight. Are you making them quiet again? Elias's throat tightened. Trying to, sweetheart, she grinned. Then hurry, okay? Mommy says when the stars are quiet, you come home. The screen blinked off. The silence that followed carried more weight than the Council's verdicts ever could. Elias leaned forward, pressing a hand against the cool surface of the console. For the first time in days, his composure faltered. He breathed out slowly, steadying himself before standing. He stepped back onto the bridge. The crew rose instinctively, but he motioned them to remain seated. Status, he said. Ramos glanced up from the console. All fleets returning to coalition space. Relief missions underway. Civilian transports already carrying supplies to damaged systems. Good, Elias said. Then our work isn't done. Send assistance to every surrendering fleet still stranded. Share medical resources. No exceptions, Ramos frowned. Sir, some of those worlds... Elias cut him off gently. We'll treat everyone. If peace has teeth, it also needs a conscience. The order went out without question. Across the bridge, officers resumed motion, purpose restored. Holt approached quietly. Sir, we're receiving new transmissions from smaller systems. Messages of thanks, pledges to the protocols. Some are even asking for Terran aid in rebuilding. Elias's expression softened. That's the part they'll never understand. We don't conquer to rule. We act to remember. Kashasa interjected. Shall I log that for public record? He shook his head. No, some things are better whispered than archived. The Artemis continued its slow course toward Seoul. Outside, the scattered remnants of the Dominion fleets drifted in silence, orbiting nowhere, silent monuments to arrogance and consequence. Hours later, Elias stood alone again by the viewport. The stars ahead burned white, endless and calm. In their glow, his reflection looked older than the man who'd entered the council weeks ago. Holt's voice came softly from behind. "Captain, we'll reach Sol orbit in 4 hours." He nodded without turning. "Alert command when we arrive. Then prepare the crew for shore leave. They've earned more than sleep." She hesitated. "And you?" "I'll stay aboard until the debriefing." Holt smiled faintly. "You'll never rest, will you? Rest is for those without reasons." She hesitated, then left him alone with the stars. The hum of the ship blended with his thoughts. Beyond the window, Earth grew larger. Blue oceans, white clouds, continents glowing in the light of sunrise. It had never looked smaller, yet it was still home. He whispered, "Not to anyone in particular. They think we taught them fear, but it's us who keep learning restraint." Kashasa's soft voice broke the quiet. "Captain, several foreign fleets have begun surrender protocols preemptively. Seems the memory endures." Elias's expression barely changed. "Let it. The best kind of peace is the one maintained by thought, not threat." He lifted the cooling cup of coffee, finally taking a slow sip. It was bitter, grounding, real. Ramos's voice came through the calm. "Sir, final confirmation from command. They're authorizing humanitarian deployment to all war zones under our supervision. The world's press is calling this the Quiet Age." Elias set the cup down. "Quiet," he repeated almost to himself. "Let's hope it stays that way." The bridge dimmed as the ship entered Earth's shadow. For a few moments, the stars vanished, replaced by the darkness of the planet's silhouette. The silence felt heavy, sacred. Elias closed his eyes briefly. He thought of the hymn that had echoed through the rift, the voices of women singing as empires burned. He hadn't heard it since the battle, but now it returned unbidden, faint as memory, echoing through his mind. When he opened his eyes again, Earth filled the glass. Alive. Waiting. He whispered the words his daughter had once said, voice low and steady. "The stars are quiet now." Then, with deliberate calm, he turned toward the helm. "Set course for home." The Artemis descended through the void, engines steady, leaving behind a galaxy that finally understood silence, not as surrender, but as warning. For the first time in a generation, peace held.